The snow fell silently, a thick, suffocating shroud that blanketed the tiny rural town of Black Springs. My cottage sat at the edge of the village, surrounded by dense, snow-laden forest. The trees formed a natural barrier, their gnarled limbs twisting together and casting shadows even in the brightest daylight. At night, the forest became an endless void, its silence heavy and full of unspoken threats. I'd come here to escape the chaos of my past, a desperate bid for sobriety. But the quiet town harbored its own darkness, one that mirrored my own in ways I never could have imagined. Earlier that day, a moment of weakness had led me to the liquor store. I bought the bottle, a heavy, shameful reminder of the life I'd tried to leave behind. Back in my small kitchen, the air felt thick with tension as I twisted off the cap. The scent of whiskey hit me, sweet and intoxicating, pulling me back to the haze of late-night parties and the allure of temporary oblivion. My hands trembled as I approached the sink. Shadow, my black cat, watched me from atop the fridge. His green eyes glinted with an intensity that almost seemed human, as if he understood the gravity of what I was about to do. His tail flicked, and he tilted his head, waiting. With a deep, shaky breath, I tipped the bottle and let the amber liquid pour out. It swirled down the drain, a final goodbye to the life I was trying to leave behind. Shadow let out a soft, approving purr, then jumped down to rub against my leg, his warmth a small comfort. I thought that would be the end of it. But as night fell, the darkness made itself known. Later that evening, I curled up in the living room with a cup of herbal tea, trying to calm the storm inside me. The snow continued to fall, blanketing everything in a suffocating hush. Shadow sat by the window, staring out into the woods, his ears twitching at every creak and groan of the old house. The cottage felt too quiet, the kind of silence that presses in on you, amplifying your fears. Then the old clock radio in the kitchen crackled to life, making me jump. It shouldn't have turned on by itself, and my heart thudded as I listened to the song that began to play, "Sweet Dreams Are Made of This" by Eurythmics. The opening notes were distorted and warped, but unmistakable. It was the song that had been the soundtrack to so many of my wild nights, playing in clubs thick with smoke and electric energy. Hearing it here, in this isolated place, felt like a cruel joke, a reminder of everything I was trying to escape. I rushed into the kitchen and yanked the radio's plug from the wall. The music cut off abruptly, leaving only the echo of my ragged breathing. Shadow had followed me, his back arched and fur bristling. I could feel the fear thickening in the room, an invisible presence pressing in on us. That's when I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. It came from the living room window, deliberate and patient. The forest pressed up against that side of the house, and I imagined something out there, hidden among the trees, watching and waiting. My mouth went dry. I backed away, whispering to myself, "It's just the wind." But Shadow didn't believe me. He hissed, his tail puffed up, and bolted under the couch. The tapping moved, louder now, coming from the back of the house. I fumbled for my phone, but the screen stayed black, dead battery. A knock echoed through the house, deep and menacing, as if something was demanding to be let in. I crept to the front door, every muscle tense. My hand hovered over the knob as another knock came, harder this time. I yanked the door open, hoping for a neighbor or a lost traveler, but the porch was empty. Snow whirled through the air, erasing any sign of footprints. The forest loomed, dark and forbidding, just beyond the edge of the yard. I closed the door, locking it tight, but dread washed over me. The scent of whiskey curled through the air, and when I turned back to the kitchen, my heart stopped. The bottle of Jameson sat on the counter, full and taunting, as though I had never emptied it. A note was stuck to the glass, the words jagged and ominous. "Drink me. Escape your pain." My hands shook, panic flooding my veins. How was this possible? The bottle was a physical manifestation of my addiction, a reminder of the darkness that refused to let me go. A voice, cold and insidious, whispered in my ear, "Drink. Escape." Shadow emerged from his hiding place, his eyes wide and wild. He knew. He sensed the danger creeping into our sanctuary. Desperation fueled my resolve. I grabbed the bottle and hurled it at the shadowy figure that had begun to coalesce in the corner of the room. The glass shattered, whiskey spilling across the floor. The figure recoiled, its form flickering and dissolving into the darkness. Exhausted and terrified, I sank to the floor. Shadow leapt into my lap, purring softly, his small body a source of comfort. But the night was far from over. The tapping grew louder, and,